Have you ever stopped to think about how just one decision, like a single critical choice, can just echo through history? How it could totally change the path of a whole nation?
Or maybe how, having really strong conviction, even when things look absolutely impossible, can seem to defy everything we think we know.
Yeah, exactly. It's those moments, those really surprising twists and the deep lessons inside them that we're going to explore today.
hmm Welcome, everyone, to the deep dive. We're about to unpack some, well, truly ancient and incredibly dramatic stories.
That's right. We've pulled from a really rich collection of source material here, covering these critical, transformative times in the history of the Israelite people.
We're talking about quite a range from a kingdom literally splitting in two because of a prophecy involving a torn robe, all the way to these harrowing captivities, and then eventually these amazing returns.
Yeah, and our mission today for this deep dive, it's really to go beyond just listing facts.
Right. We want to pull out the most important bits of knowledge, the real insights from these accounts, basically give you a shortcut to understanding the key people, these often surprising events, and the big lessons about things like obedience, consequence, and honestly, incredible resilience.
We'll journey through tales of prophets, kings, queens, even just ordinary people who suddenly found themselves in these totally extraordinary situations. So let's just dive right in, okay? Let's start at the beginning of this divided kingdom.
Okay. So, to really get how this huge shift happened, we need to start with a prophet named Ahijah. He meets this guy, Jeroboam. King Solomon had put him in charge of some big building project, and Ahijah does something. Well, pretty strange.
Yeah, he takes his own robe, a brand new one apparently, rips it into 12 pieces, and then he gives 10 of those pieces to Jeroboam. Now, this wasn't just random theatrics, was it? It was a visual prophecy.
Exactly that. It was deeply symbolic. Ahijah explained it. God was going to tear 10 tribes away from Solomon and give them to Jeroboam to rule over.
Yep.
Yeah, meaning only 2 tribes would be left for Solomon's son, Rehoboam. It's a really powerful picture of how, divine plans can sometimes work through very human, very dramatic actions.
And you can imagine Solomon wasn't too happy when he heard about this.
Not at all. He was furious. Tried to kill Jeroboam straight away.
Right. So Jeroboam has to flee, runs off to Egypt.
But Solomon, he rules for a good 40 years.
Yeah.
After he dies, his son Rehoboam takes the throne. And this is where things really, really pivot.
Yeah, because the people, they'd had it pretty rough under Solomon, right? All the building, the heavy taxes.
Absolutely. So they go to Rehoboam and basically plead with him, hey, can you lighten the load a bit? Be less harsh than your father?
Oh, Rehoboam, he doesn't listen. Our sources say he was actually meaner than before. What does that tell us? That kind of stubbornness, that refusal to listen.
Well, it's the breaking point, isn't it? It shows how a leader's arrogance, that unwillingness to hear their own people, can directly cause rebellion. It fragments everything.
But because he was so harsh.
Because he was so harsh, Jeroboam, who had come back from Egypt by then, he gets made king over 10 of the tribes. And that sets up the northern kingdom, which they called Israel.
Leaving just Judah and Benjamin loyal to Rehoboam, forming the southern kingdom, Judah, down around Jerusalem.
Exactly. 2 separate kingdoms now.
So, okay, 2 kingdoms. And Jeroboam, the new king up north, he immediately hits a big problem. He's worried his people will still feel they need to go down to Jerusalem, to the temple there, to worship Jehovah.
Right, and he's scared that if they do that, they might just abandon him and go back to Rehoboam's side. It's a political fear, really.
So what's his solution?
It's drastic, and the consequences. Immediate and really bad. He makes 2 golden calves, sets them up in his own territory as places for his people to worship, trying to keep them away from Jerusalem.
Golden calves.
Yeah.
That sounds familiar, doesn't it?
It does, and the sources are blunt. Soon the land became filled with crime and violence because of this.
Wow. So that move, just born out of political anxiety, it wasn't just a religious issue. It immediately started corroding the whole society.
Pretty much. It shows how quickly compromising on fundamental beliefs can just unravel things, leading to moral collapse.
And it wasn't like things were perfect down south either, right, in Rehoboam's kingdom.
No, not at all. Within 5 years, the king of Egypt attacks Jerusalem, takes a whole load of treasure from Jehovah's temple. So yeah, disobedience and its fallout. It started hitting both kingdoms almost right away.
Okay, so this pattern of, well, wickedness.
Yeah.
It definitely didn't stop there. Fast forward a bit, we meet King Ahab in the northern kingdom. He's described as particularly bad.
Yes, and a huge factor in that was his wife, Queen Jezebel. She's infamous for a reason.
Our sources point out she wasn't even an Israelite, right? daughter of the king of Sidon.
Correct. And what's really key here is how actively she pushed the worship of this false god Baal. He was a major Canaanite deity, storm god, fertility god. She got tons of Israelites to ditch Jehovah and worship him instead.
And her hatred for Jehovah, it was intense, killing his prophets, forcing others into hiding. This wasn't just like indifference, it was an active campaign.
Oh, absolutely. And nothing shows her ruthlessness quite like the story of Naboth's vineyard.
Ah, yes. King Ahab wants this vineyard next to his palace, but Naboth won't sell it. It was ancestral land, important tradition.
Right. Ahab's all mopey about it, and Jezebel just tells him basically, cheer up, I'll get it for you.
And she does, by completely fabricating charges against Naboth, accusing him of cursing God and the king.
Exactly. She arranges for false witnesses. Naboth gets dragged out of the city and stoned to death. As soon as she hears he's dead, she tells Ahab, go on, take the vineyard.
That is just cold, calculated evil. What does that tell us about her? Beyond just being wicked, what's the lesson in that kind of power grab?
Well, it's a chilling example of how unchecked power, combined with that hunger for what isn't yours, can completely destroy justice, destroy human dignity. It's the classic absolute power corrupts absolutely, isn't it? Especially when there's no moral compass. The innocent just get crushed.
And her end was pretty dramatic too, wasn't it?
Oh, very. When this guy, Jehu, comes to execute judgment on her family, she puts on makeup, fixes her hair, looks out the window, kind of defiant maybe?
Yeah.
The Jehu tells some men up there with her, throw her down. And they do. A very brutal end for a brutal queen.
A grim end, definitely. But, amidst all this darkness and wickedness, the narratives also give us these incredible moments of prophetic power, these flashes of hope, and even life itself.
They really do. We see these amazing stories of prophets actually bringing people back from the dead.
Okay, like Elijah, right? He's staying with a widow in a place called Zarephath, and her son gets sick and dies.
Elijah takes the boy, carries him upstairs, lays him on a bed, and just prays intensely to Jehovah, basically saying, please let this boy live again.
Yeah.
And the boy starts breathing. Elijah brings him back down to his mother. You can only imagine her joy. It's such a powerful display of divine intervention.
Absolutely. And then there's Elisha, who followed Elijah. He performs a similar miracle.
Yes, in a town called Shunem. There's this woman who's been very kind to him, and she has a son. One day, the boy's out in the field, cries out, my head hurts, and he dies.
Oh, no.
So Elisha comes, goes into the room where the dead child is, prays, and then lies down over the boy's body. The body starts to get warm,
Wow.
and then the boy sneezes 7 times and comes back to life. Again, it's this incredible emphasis on life-giving power, showing that even death isn't final when divine power is involved.
These are amazing stories. But Elisha was also involved in healings, not just resurrections, right? Like Naaman.
Yes, Naaman. He's a Syrian army commander, a big deal, but he has leprosy. He comes seeking healing from Elisha.
And Elisha's instruction is surprisingly simple.
Almost offensively simple to Naaman anyway. Elisha just sends a message, go wash in the Jordan River 7 times.
And Naaman's reaction?
He's furious. He's like, aren't the rivers back in Damascus better than this muddy Jordan? I expected some grand gesture, some magic. It really shows human pride, doesn't it?
It does. But his servants managed to persuade him, thankfully.
Yeah, they basically say, look, if he'd asked you to do something difficult, you'd have done it. Why not try this simple thing? So he does. He washes 7 times in the Jordan.
And the result is astonishing. His skin becomes healthy, like a little child's, completely healed.
Completely. And Naaman is overwhelmed. He declares that Jehovah is the only true God and wants to give Elisha expensive gifts.
But Elisha refuses them, showing the miracle wasn't for sale.
Exactly, which makes what happens next even more jarring. Elisha's servant, Gehazi, he sees Naaman leaving with all these gifts Elisha refused.
Oh, dear.
And greed gets the better of him. He runs after Naaman, lies, says Elisha changed his mind and needs some silver and clothes for some visitors who just arrived.
That's terrible. Betraying his master like that. What happens to Gehazi?
Elisha knows instantly what he did. The consequence is swift and symbolic. Naaman's leprosy comes on to Gehazi.
Wow. A powerful, immediate lesson about greed and dishonesty.
Definitely. And speaking of disobedience, we absolutely have to talk about Jonah.
Jonah and the Bilakando. Big
What?
fish, yes. Jehovah tells him to go to this notoriously wicked city, Nineveh, and preach against it.
But Jonah says, nope, not doing it. He literally runs away, gets on a boat, going in the complete opposite direction towards Tarshish.
It just shows a human instinct sometimes, doesn't it? To just flee from a difficult task, even a divine one.
Absolutely. And Jehovah responds by sending this massive storm. The ship is about to break apart.
The sailors are terrified, casting lots to figure out who's responsible,
Yeah.
and it falls on Jonah.
Right. Jonah confesses he's running from Jehovah. He tells them, throw me overboard and the sea will calm down.
Which they eventually do, reluctantly. And the sea immediately becomes calm. Incredible.
He really is. But that's not the end for Jonah. As he's sinking, Jehovah arranges for a huge fish to swallow him.
And he's inside the fish for 3 days and 3 nights.
That's what the account says. It's one of the most famous parts. Inside the fish, Jonah finally prays, repents, and then the fish vomits him out onto dry land. It's this dramatic, almost surreal rescue. But it forces Jonah to confront his mission.
It's such a vivid story. Survival, redirection. It kind of suggests that even when you try your hardest to run away, sometimes life or maybe divine will just puts you back on the path, maybe through really uncomfortable experiences.
That's a great way to put it. The biggest lessons sometimes come from the tightest spots. Okay, so we've seen miracles, healings, even fishy rescues, all tied to faith and obedience. But what about when faith falters at the top? Let's shift back to the kings, the prophecies they got, and what ultimately happened to Jerusalem.
Right, so after all that division and idolatry, we get King Hezekiah, and he's highlighted as a good king. He actually listened to Jehovah, unlike his dad and many others. Why was his obedience so vital right then?
It was critical because Jerusalem faced this enormous threat from the Assyrian Empire. Their massive army shows up, surrounds the city. Their commander is even mocking Jehovah, saying he can't save them.
That sounds terrifying. What did Hezekiah do?
He did what the good kings did. He prayed earnestly, and the prophet Isaiah gave him this incredibly reassuring message from God. Don't worry. The Assyrian king won't even shoot an arrow into the city. He won't come near it.
That promise, in the face of that massive army, it really speaks to faith against all odds, doesn't it? A lesson that still hits home today, I think, when everything seems lost.
Exactly. And the intervention was stunning. That very night, an angel reportedly strikes down 185,000 Assyrian soldiers.
185,000 in one night.
That's the account. The Assyrian king wakes up, sees the devastation, and just goes home. Jerusalem is saved. It's a stark reminder of the kind of power these narratives describe.
But sadly, that peace didn't last forever.
No. After Hezekiah, his son Manasseh and grandson Amon were very wicked kings. Idolatry came back strong, crime, violence. The whole downward spiral started again.
And this sets the stage for another major prophet, Jeremiah.
Yes, and Jeremiah was called when he was quite young. He was actually afraid, felt he was too young, didn't know how to speak. But Jehovah insisted.
And his mission was tough, wasn't it? Tell the people to stop their bad ways, warn them about false gods. Basically, tell them everything they didn't want to hear.
Extremely tough. The people, the priests, the princes, they hated him for it. They constantly resisted him, plotted to kill him multiple times.
But he kept going.
He kept going. Despite the death threats, he delivered God's warnings. His story is just this incredible testament to courage, speaking truth to power even when it's deeply unpopular and dangerous.
But ultimately, the warnings weren't heeded by the nation as a whole.
No. And the consequences finally arrived. King Nebuchadnezzar of Babylon came but besieged Jerusalem and took many of the people, especially the nobles and skilled workers, captive to Babylon.
And that wasn't even the final blow, was it?
No, about 10 years later, after more rebellion, Nebuchadnezzar came back. This time, he showed no mercy. Jerusalem was utterly destroyed. The temple burned to the ground, the walls torn down, most remaining people killed or taken captive.
Just gone. The city, the temple, everything. The land was left desolate for 70 years.
No, why? Why did God allow such total destruction? Well, the sources give us insight through another prophet, Ezekiel, who's actually already a captive in Babylon. He received these really disturbing visions.
What did he see?
He saw what was happening inside the temple back in Jerusalem, spiritually speaking. People secretly worshiping idols hidden on the walls, elders burning incense to false gods, even men in the inner courtyard bowing down to the sun, turning their backs on the temple.
Wow. So the corruption went right to the heart of their worship.
Exactly. These visions showed just how deep the idolatry and spiritual rot had gone. It explains why Jehovah finally withdrew his protection and allowed the destruction. The land itself needed a rest, a Sabbath from all the defilement.
And even then, some people didn't learn. The ones left behind.
Tragically, yes. The small remnant left in Judah eventually decided to flee to Egypt for safety, completely ignoring Jeremiah's specific warnings not to go there. It's just layer upon layer of ignoring the warnings.
A devastating end to that chapter.
Yeah.
But even in exile in Babylon, the story continues. Faith gets tested in new ways.
Absolutely, and we get some incredibly dramatic stories of resilience from Babylon.
Like Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. That's a classic.
It really is. Nebuchadnezzar builds this enormous gold statue, commands everyone to bow down to it when the music plays. The penalty for refusal, being thrown into a blazing, fiery furnace.
Talk about pressure. What a test.
Immense pressure. But these three young Hebrew men, friends of Daniel, they flat out refuse. They will only worship Jehovah.
So Nebuchadnezzar is furious.
Beyond furious, orders the furnace heated up 7 times hotter than normal, so hot apparently that the soldiers throwing them in are killed by the flames.
Jeez.
But then Nebuchadnezzar looks, and he's astonished. He sees not 3, but 4 men walking around unharmed in the middle of the fire. And the 4th, he says, looks like a son of the gods, or an angel.
Incredible. What a powerful image of faith being rewarded, of divine protection.
Absolutely. It's not just survival. It's a profound statement about loyalty under extreme duress.
And then there's Daniel himself, also known for his wisdom and courage.
Yes. Years later, under a different king, Belshazzar, Nebuchadnezzar's grandson, there's another famous incident, Belshazzar throws this huge feast, and he arrogantly calls for the sacred gold and silver vessels that had been taken from the temple in Jerusalem.
Oh, using sacred items for a drunken party. That sounds like asking for trouble.
Exactly. He and his guests drink wine from them, praising their own idols, and suddenly this disembodied hand appears and starts writing on the palace wall.
The handwriting on the wall, spooky. Nobody could read it.
None of his wise men could figure it out, so they call for Daniel.
And Daniel interprets it. Mean. Tekel Parsin. What did it mean?
Daniel explained it clearly. Mean God has numbered the days of your kingdom and brought it to an end. Tekel, you have been weighed on the scales and found deficient. Parsin, your kingdom is divided and given to the Medes and the Persians.
Chilling. And the impact was immediate.
Immediate. The account says that very night, Babylon fell to the Medes and Persians and Belshazzar was killed. It's this stark lesson about arrogance, sacrilege, and inescapable accountability.
But Daniel's trials weren't over even then, were they? The lion's den.
Right. Under the new ruler, Darius the Mede, Daniel is highly respected, which makes other officials jealous. They trick the king into passing a law. For 30 days, no one can pray to any god or man except King Darius. The penalty, being thrown into the lion's den.
And they knew Daniel wouldn't stop praying to Jehovah.
Exactly. He goes home, opens his windows towards Jerusalem, and prays 3 times a day, just like he always did. He doesn't hide it. He doesn't compromise.
What does that tell us about real faith? Is it about consistency?
I think so. It shows faith isn't just for show or only when it's safe. It's a deep, consistent practice woven into life, regardless of the consequences.
So he gets thrown to the lions.
He does. The king is actually distraught because he liked Daniel, but the law couldn't be changed. But the next morning, Darius rushes to the den, calls out, and Daniel answers, "An angel," he says, "shut the lions' mouths." Darius is overjoyed. He has Daniel lifted out unharmed. And then those men who plotted against Daniel, they, along with their families, are thrown into the lion's den, and the lions immediately overpower them.
Wow. Justice served in a pretty dramatic fashion. Darius even makes a decree that everyone should respect Daniel's God.
Yes, it's another powerful story of integrity under pressure and divine deliverance.
So, after all these trials and exile, eventually the 70 years are up, and the prophecies about returning home start to come true.
They do. The Persian king, Cyrus the Great, issues a decree allowing the Jews to return to Jerusalem and rebuild the temple. Almost 50,000 Israelites make that long journey back.
That must have been an incredible moment, like a dream come true after generations in exile.
Absolutely monumental. And the first thing they do when they get back, they build an altar and start working on rebuilding Jehovah's temple.
Priorities, right.
Definitely. But it wasn't smooth sailing, was it? They faced opposition. Oh yeah, immediately. Enemies in the surrounding lands, other groups living there, they actively try to stop the building work. They use intimidation, false accusations. They even managed to get the Persian authorities to issue an official ban on the construction.
So even after coming home, the struggle just continued. How did they get past that?
The work stopped for about 17 years. It was discouraging. But then 2 prophets, Haggai and Zechariah, step up. They start encouraging the people, reminding them of God's purpose, urging them to get back to work on the temple despite the ban.
So they restarted the work, even with the ban in place.
They did, trusting in God. And then a local governor named Tatnai challenges them, asks who gave them permission. They explain about Cyrus's original decree. Tatnai sends a letter to the new Persian king asking him to check the official records. And they find it. They find Cyrus's original decree authorizing the temple rebuilding. So the new king not only confirms it, but orders Tatnai and the others not to interfere, and even to provide resources from the royal treasury to help finish the job.
That's amazing. So the opposition actually backfired and ended up helping them.
Exactly. With that official backing, they finished the temple in about 4 more years.
And the sources also mentioned later efforts, right? Ezra coming to beautify the temple, teach the law, and Nehemiah rebuilding Jerusalem's broken walls.
That's right. These later efforts cover roughly the next 150 years or so after the initial return. It really paints a picture of restoration as this long, persistent process. It wasn't instant. It took generations of effort, community building, facing setbacks, but ultimately rebuilding their city and their connection to God.
Wow, what an incredible sweep of history we've just covered. From, that kingdom splitting over a torn robe, all the way to surviving fiery furnaces, lions' dens, and finally rebuilding. These stories are just packed with human drama, aren't they? And these extraordinary events.
They really are. And you definitely see these powerful patterns repeating, don't you?
Right.
The often severe consequences when people disobey or turn away, but also the incredible power that comes from faith, from prayer, and these moments where divine help shows up in really unexpected ways.
Yeah, like a storm stopping instantly or that huge Assyrian army just vanishing overnight. It's quite something.
And these sources, I mean, they're ancient, but they hammer home this timeless idea about the power of our choices. Do we listen? Do we obey? Do we push back? They show how leadership matters, how compromise can be costly, but also how incredibly strong conviction can be.
It really makes you think, doesn't it? What patterns of, human behavior resilience, what do you recognize in these ancient tales that maybe still echoes today in our world?
And maybe what lessons could we as individuals or even as communities take from these accounts when we face our own big choices, our own challenges? Something to mull over.